Okay, welcome to Flash Video Basics Part 2. Today we're going to add some simple controls to your video. So here's where we left off last time. We got the video to display inside of our Flash movie. So let's jump back to Flash, and we could start to build our interface right now, but it's going to be difficult because all we see is this little X where the video component is. It would be great if we could actually see the video in here to see what our display would look like. So one way around that is to take a screenshot from your video and to just bring it in temporarily. So let's do that. Create a new layer, and I'm just going to call it screenshot. And a quick way to import something to the stage is to hit Control R, and there's my screenshot, and I'm just going to position it up over the video component. So now I can build my controls and have a really good idea of what it's going to look like in the end. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do after locking that layer is to create a new layer and call it control bar. So here I'm going to be making the background that sit under my controls. So I'm going to create a rectangle and to keep the stroke like that with a white fill, and I want to make it a rounded rectangle. So I'm going to click this button down here in the options, and it'll allow me to set how much curve on the corner of my rectangles. 5 is okay. Okay, so I'm going to come down and I'm going to drag my little control bar out. About there. Okay. So now I want to turn this into a graphic symbol so that I can play around with the opacity. So I'm going to double click it and make sure you get the stroke in there as well. We want to turn it all into a symbol. And hit F8 to get the convert symbol dialog box. I'm going to turn it to a graphic, and I'm going to call it control bar. Okay, so now let's play around with the opacity on this guy. So I'm going to come down to the properties palette, and under color I'm going to choose alpha. Now here I'm going to probably drag that down to about 50% for now. Okay, so now it looks okay. It looks a little flat though, so I want to do something to kind of pop it out a little bit. So I'm going to double click on it to go back into edit mode. Just select the fill, and I'm going to go to my color mixer, and I'm going to put a gradient on it. I'm going to put a linear gradient. I want a gradient that's light on either side and dark in the middle. So I'm going to drag this dark guy into the middle and add a new point out here. I'm going to make that white. Okay, so now I have light on either side and dark in the middle, but that's probably a little too dark, so I'm going to lower that to about there. Now let's take a look. Okay, you see there's a problem. The gradient is rotated the wrong way. So if I hit the F key, it's going to give me the fill transform tool. Now when I click, I have these control points to manipulate the gradient. I can scale it, I can rotate it, and I need to rotate it about 90 degrees. About there. Okay, now I need to, let me get a little more room here. I need to scale it down to about there. So now you see I kind of have that nice 3D effect. And when I go out to my main movie with the opacity lowered, and it's actually probably a little too low now. So I'm going to bump that up to about 75%. About there. Okay, so now I have that kind of cool frosted glass, semi-transparent look. So now I'm ready to add my controls here. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to lock that layer, create a new layer, and call it controls. Okay, so now I need to add some VCR style controls to them. The quickest way to get the VCR type labels is with a dingbat font. So I'm going to click down here with my text tool, and I want to make it black. And there's many dingbat fonts out there. WebDings is a great one that has the VCR labels built into it. So I'm going to go out, and for the rewind button I'm going to hit 9. The number 9 gives me that rewind button. Click again and hit the number 4, and now I get the play button. So now I have these, and I want to align them up, so I select them both, go to my align palette and align them to the bottom. Okay, let's drag these approximately into place and nudge them a little bit. Let's get that play button over. So real quick, I've got some VCR type buttons here that I can use. Okay, so next I'm going to nudge them up a little bit more, and now I need to actually turn them into buttons. So I'm going to highlight the rewind label here, and again I'm going to do F8 to bring the convert to symbol dialog box. I'm going to choose button, and I'm going to call it rewind button. Okay, and we're going to have to do the same thing for the play button. And this should be basically review if you've ever used Flash before. There shouldn't be anything too confusing here. Okay, so now I have these, and I'm going to need to give them instance names since we're going to be using them in ActionScript. And do it for the play button, and I'm just giving the same names to both the instance names and the symbols, which is fine. Okay, so now I want to edit these a little bit. I'm going to double click on the rewind button, and here's my typical 4-frame button timeline. Add some keyframes, choose the over state, and when I roll over it, I want it to turn white. Okay, and for the down state, I just want to make it maybe like a light gray, just so that I can see that the button has been pressed. And the hit state is, of course, you're defining the hotspot for the button. So I'm going to just drag a rectangle, filled rectangle there. Again, this isn't visible. This is just the hotspot area for the button. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for my play button. Add some keyframes. And again, this is the most basic way to do it. Of course, if you're actually building a player for yourself for real, you can use movie clips instead of buttons. It'll allow you to have much more interactivity and animation if you wanted it. Okay, so I'm done with that. Let me come out. Okay, so now these buttons are ready. So let's test our movie just to take a look at it. Okay, here we are, and okay, we get some nice rollovers there. When I click, see that little gray, it just gives the impression as if this thing has been pressed, which is what we want. Okay, let's go back. And now we're going to do our ActionScript to make these buttons actually do something. So here's the code that we did in the last tutorial. I created the net connection object, the net stream object, and we have our embedded video object on the stage. From this point on, the only thing you're going to be programming is the net stream object. This is the actual stream of video. So we're going to be manipulating that stream in everything else that we do in this player. So now let's write the script for the rewind button, and we're going to say rewind button dot on release, which means when the mouse button has been pressed and then released, call this function or do what's inside of this function. Now if you're used to putting code directly onto buttons, I advise you to get out of that habit, because this way all of your ActionScript is here on this same layer in the same keyframe. You don't have to go searching around for it later. So now we're going to call a method of the netstream object called seek. Seek is basically, we're telling it to seek X number of seconds into the video and play. So since we want to go to the beginning and play, because it's a rewind button, we're just going to put 0. So we're saying go 0 seconds into the video stream and play. Okay, so there's our rewind button done. And again, it's very simple. Once you get that code above out of the way, it now becomes very simple. Okay, so let's do the same thing for our play button. Do play button dot on release. Again, it's really good if you get used to coding your buttons and your movie clips this way. That way there's a central location for your code. I can't stress that enough. Okay, let me get a little more room here. And now I'm going to call another method of the netstream object called pause. What pause does is acts like a toggle switch. If you call it when the video is playing, it will pause the video. If you call it when the video is paused, it will play the video. So it's just a way to toggle on and off, play, pause, play, pause. So every time we hit the play button, it's going to call that method. So there it is. That's all the code needed to program our rewind button and our play button. And of course, all the functionality for the video player won't be quite this simple. When we get into the scrubber bar to scrub through the timeline, that stuff like that, of course, gets more complex. So let's go out and test our movie. And here's our video playing. We have our little frosted glass control bar. And click on the play button. Pauses the video. Click again. It plays the video. And when we click on the rewind button, we're going to go back to the beginning of the stream and play. So in the next tutorial, we're going to get into creating that scrubber bar to scrub through the timeline, and also to create a volume slider, mute button, and anything else that we can think of. Thanks for watching.